Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Aggie Pridecast. My name is Brian Holloway. I am so excited about tonight because we have a very special guest here to talk about a very special topic, Aggie athletics, and just support financially of Aggie athletics. And I think we're going to have a good time here tonight just talking about the history of athletics, the importance of the All Aggies All In campaign that is starting to prosper, that is really starting to pick up some momentum. Maybe have a little fun with our guest here, challenges A&T athletics knowledge history there a little bit. But we have with us Mr. Willie A. Dees. You probably see his name all over campus, Dees Ballroom, Dees Tower, Dees Business School, all of those things. But he has embarked upon a very special project here in the age of the collective, in the age of the NIL in athletics, and that is a campaign to fundraise for North Carolina A&T athletics. Mr. Dees, how are you doing tonight?
Brian, I'm well, and good to be with you.
Outstanding. As we start to talk about this campaign that we're embarking in, and all the Aggies are all coming in, just had a big donation last week. Where do you see the campaign now as we've kind of started this right around homecoming of 2025? And where do you see it now as we start to embark here on the spring football game in April?
Brian, I have good news, better news, but we shouldn't rest on our laurels. As you know, it's a 5-year campaign. And when we set out to do this a year ago, just about a year ago, and we didn't get the green light to move forward with starting to actually raise money until August, September of last year, we said we wanted to raise in the first year an incremental $500,000. That was $500,000 above where we had previously raised funds for athletics. I am confident now that we will raise $1 million cash or more in the first year.
Wow.
We said we wanted to be at a run rate of $1 million a year by 2030. Well, we're going to be at $1 million a year at the end of the first year. Now, that's the good news. The not so good news is that our competitors aren't standing still. They raise a lot of money. If you take inside the CAA alone, and everybody should listen to me really closely, the College of Charleston and UNC Wilmington, which have they didn't win the tournament this year, but over the last few years, those two teams have been the best in CAA in basketball. The College of Charleston has an NIL budget for men's basketball alone. An NIL budget, not their total budget for basketball, but an NIL budget of $3 million a year and growing. UNC Wilmington, which doesn't play football, has a men's basketball NIL budget of $2.2 million and growing. So while we're ahead of schedule of what we said we wanted to do, we still trail other members of the CAA by a substantial margin. So what we've done now, because of the early success, we're now saying we want to be at a run rate of $3 million a year by the end of 2028. And we want to be at a run rate of $5 million a year by the end of 2030. A lot of work ahead, but I think we can get there. And if we get there, over the course of 5 years, we will have raised over $15 million for the capital campaign versus 5, which was the target when we started. And necessity is pushing us to raise these targets and to raise the goals. It's not that I woke up one morning and just said, let's just raise it because we're doing well.
Right.
our competition is not standing still. And we know that if we are in the ballpark, we don't have to match dollar for dollar. We can attract athletes, men and women, who are good enough for us to win championships. As I'm fond of saying, we don't have to match dollar for dollar, but we can't be no dollar. And folks can say, I don't like NIL. I wish it didn't exist. But the reality is it does. And if you're going to be competitive in college athletics today, you have to raise money.
There are some who are in the public atmosphere who say that the NIL, the collective, however you want to call it, is not a sustainable business model. So I'm going to ask the best guy that I know about business, where do you see this in about 5, 10 years as we continue to embark on this new thing of paying players on the college level? Is this a sustainable business, or is that just not a big deal because this is going to continue to grow anyway?
Brian, it's complicated. And if anybody says they know the answer, they probably are making it up.
Right.
And here's why. The way this has gone, two things, unless you change the rules, every college athlete is a free agent every single year. So it means it used to be that if I decided to change college or university, I had to sit out a year before I could play again. Now you raise your hand and you say, I'm in the transfer portal, and you're gone. And it's not just the fact that you have that level of mobility. There is the financial aspect to it. Think about this. Before last year, had anyone heard of Indiana University or dreamed that they would win a national football championship?
That's right.
If you'd said they're going to win a basketball championship, yeah, they've done that before. They're known for basketball, but football in the Big Ten and then on the national stage, I would have taken that bet all day long. But what happened? Mark Cuban, who most people know about, used to own the Dallas Mavericks, billionaire kind of donor and alum to Indiana, comes in, says, I'm going to put my thumb on the scale, and it's legal. And so I'm going to give a bunch of money to Indiana. That probably illustrates better than anything else where this has gone. The only thing that I think will change it is legislation.
That's right.
But if you're waiting on legislation to change it and you think it's going to make it better, I wouldn't take that bet either. I would bet that the legislation will favor the traditional powerhouses in college athletics so that they aren't impacted by someone coming in and putting their thumb on the scale. So the notion that somehow this is going to self-correct because it's not sustainable, it is not sustainable for the many, but for those deep pocket billionaires and multimillionaires who want to see their teams win, unless there's legislation, it's going to continue. Now, will it continue at the same level? I don't know. But I know a Carolina, a Duke, an NC State can raise 20, 30, $40 million a year and not blink, right?
Right.
So even if it changes, I don't know that it's going to help a North Carolina A&T do well or do better. And take a look at the MEAC. I hear all the time, let's just go back to the MEAC and we'll be fine. That's not true. We played a number of MEAC schools last couple of years in football and basketball. They beat us. So going back to the MEAC doesn't make us more competitive. Now, at least 2 schools, maybe 3 in the MEAC outraise us every year, certainly before we started All Aggies All In. It wouldn't surprise me is after this year, we move into the number 1 position in terms of raising money. But again, you got to stay there. You can't get there 1 year and then fall back. So I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think that solution is going to favor us. And so I don't think it goes away. Now, here's the other thing that makes it complicated. The motive force for certainly the high revenue generating sports and college athletics comes from people who look like you and I, often from underprivileged backgrounds.
That's right.
Everybody gets rich off of their talent and capability, name, image, and likeness. They deserve to get some of that too. So when I look at this, I don't think there are easy solutions. It may get altered in the next 3 to 4 years. If and when it does, and if it's a legislative solution, based on history, I don't count on it being fair and equitable.
Yeah, well, when you look at it, the reason why we're probably in this right now is because a lot of the Power Fours were not sharing a lot of the revenue that they were getting, and so because of that, that trickled down to a North Carolina A&T or some of your smaller schools who never get, the benefit of the doubt. We always just have to pay for what the big boys have yet to do. I do want to ask you. You mentioned Charleston and Wilmington not winning the tournament. Hofstra, who also does not have football, ended up winning the tournament. My first question to that is that do they have an unfair advantage, those schools, because they don't have football to kind of have to pay for? And then my second part of that question, how detrimental can this be to some coaches who may finish second, may finish third, raise that kind of money, but didn't win it all? And I guess that goes back to the business model of sometimes you're just pouring in, but what are you pouring out, getting out of that?
Yeah. What I would say about that is the one part of the equation that has not changed is you have to win. Now, here's the interesting thing, though, Brian, and you would know because you attended all of the games. We easily could have won 4 or 5 more games if a few breaks had gone our way, if the officiating had been a little bit better and a little bit fairer. And we were missing our first or second leading scorer pretty much all season.
That's right.
That was worth about anywhere from 15 to 20 points a game. So imagine, had we not had that misfortune, but that's part of the sport. It happens. Injuries happen. Illnesses happen. But let's just say he had played the entire season. We easily would have been in the top 4 teams in the conference. And then when the tournament happens, who knows who wins, right? So,
right.
And if you think about that, we would have been in the top 4 with a budget that's not even 1/10 of the size of the 2 leading schools in the conference from a money standpoint. So it tells me with good coaching, good recruitment, we can compete. But the thing that you didn't say, but you inferred, is but once you get them, you have to keep them. And that's the other big challenge. Because what we don't want to be is the farm team for everybody. So my thought is we have to raise enough money to recruit and retain. I don't think we need to match dollar for dollar, because you get some things at A&T that you can't get at a UNC Wilmington. You can't get at a College of Charleston. And the other thing that I would say to these young athletes, and this is hard for an 18 to 21-year-old to fully understand, because they haven't lived enough life yet. Early gratification does not always mean that it's lasting gratification or that it is sustainable. These kids need to have assurance when the ball stops bouncing, when the football stops being thrown, when the baseball, you're no longer swinging at curved balls. And so what A&T will do is invest in you as a whole person and care about you after your days of playing are over. One statistic that is real and doesn't go away: less than 2% of the kids who play college athletics, young adults, because they're not kids, young adults who play college athletics are going to play on a pro level anywhere in the world. Less than 2%. Your college career, unless you're Indiana, should be ending around 21, 22, not 24, 25.
I see what you did.
Yeah, and you got to live for the rest of your life. And we offer something there, and we're going to care about you long after your playing days are gone. You're going to build relationships here that are going to last the rest of your lifetime. At some of these football and basketball factories, that is just not the case. And it really and truly is next up. And so we have to have those conversations with the student athletes, their parents, their grandparents. And we're not going to win every one of those conversations, but we'll win our share. And if we were one player away that was on our team, but he just couldn't play because of his health, from being in the top 4 in a very competitive conference, I like our chances going forward. Same with women. And I like what Coach Gibbs is building in football. And we will get back to there being who we've been, which last decade, and actually it just made me think of something, Brian. Why did the MEAC get better? Why did the SWAC get better? It's because of that school on East Lindsay and the corner of East Lindsay and Sullivan. That's why they got better. It wasn't because of Deion Sanders. It wasn't because none of that. They got better because A&T became the standard, not just for football, but for Black college athletics. I don't think anyone who's knowledgeable about HBCU sports can deny that was true between 2012 and 2020. We were the standard. We need to get there again.
No question about it. I think, as you were talking, and when Tariq Cohen stepped on that stage in 2015, it changed the game. I mean, it just really changed everything about H, because everybody at that point knew they had to step up if they wanted to share that stage that A&T got from what he was doing, running up and down the field, untouched. So certainly that triggered something there for where everybody else had to catch up. There's no question about that.
And I saw you, Brian, one more point. one more point. Think about how implausible in 2010 it seemed if someone had said in 2010, in 2020, A&T will have 2 Olympic gold medalists in track and field.
That's right.
I don't think anybody would have taken that bet. We did it.
And to build on that point, I saw you in LA and you seem to be enjoying yourself educating people on the amount of giving that has happened in the past, the impact of giving, and all of those things that go along with that. I was wondering if you could kind of share those numbers in terms of percentages of people who give back, the importance of it, because before All Aggie started, you had the gold medalists, you had Brandon Parker in the NFL draft, you had Tariq Cohen. Things were really going well. Just imagine the impact of people's really starting to pour into athletics. Can you kind of get into that a little bit, just about the percentages and how many more people we need to come along for this ride?
Absolutely. Brian, it perplexes me. And the one thing I do know, that if you give folks the information, if you provide the education, it is the thing that starts to open the door of understanding, and it moves people to action. So a few of those facts are that we have 75,000 graduates, and we talk about that with a lot of pride, and we should. We absolutely should. But when it comes to giving, we don't act like, we don't give like we're the #1 HBCU in America. We just don't. And we need to change it. Roughly, let's just call it 5,000 of us give back to the institution that gave us the foundations to live the life that we live. And I'll tell you a quick story that'll make all of this make sense. I was not a scholarship student when I came to A&T. I could have been, but I wasn't. The biggest reason was because they told me that classes were not mandatory, and all you had to do was make sure you showed up for the test and you did well. Well, I listened to that. I was a basketball addict, and every opportunity I got to play basketball, that's what I was doing. I did my classwork, but I did not go to class regularly my first 2 years at A&T. And one of the assistant deans said to me, "You need to go on this co-op assignment, which will show you what the real world is like." I did that at Digital Equipment. I took the interview. I was selected in Massachusetts, the middle of my junior year. I stayed there a semester and a summer. That's where I learned what the competition was going to be like when I got out into the real world. I got to see it before I got there. That advice was worth more to me than a scholarship ever would have been, because it, again, going back to that prepare them for life, it prepped me for what I was going to live for the rest of my adult life. And if I had gotten a scholarship, I would not have been nearly as competitive. I would not have gone on that internship. And my future would have been a lot different. So I say that to say, we, again, offer things that I know they won't get at some of these other institutions. But let's talk about what you asked me. And all of this makes sense in just a minute. Less than 5,000 of us give back to the institution that did so much for us, something just under 6%. Prior to All Aggies All In, 1,274 of us alums give back to the university for athletics, less than 2%. Yet we'll have 22,000 screaming fans in Truist Stadium for homecoming.
That's right.
Something's very wrong with that picture. That equation doesn't work. That dog won't hunt. And we say, and we are the largest HBCU in the nation. When it comes to giving, we act like the smallest. There are at least 8 HBCUs that have giving rates higher than our 2%. There are 4 up until this year who raise more money on an annual basis than A&T. None of those things should be true for the largest HBCU in the nation. And the big difference today versus when we were winning all those championships and winning all those celebration bowls is NIL and transfer portal didn't exist. They do now. And even if legislation comes, they're not going away. It'll largely make it better for the Alabamas and the Georgias who used to get all of the best athletes in football. They would be 2 and 3 teams deep. So you could be an All-American in high school, go to Georgia, Alabama, and sit on the bench for 4 years. Got a full ride, but nobody knew who you were, and you never got a shot to go to the pros. Think about what you said earlier. For about 4 years, we sent a player to the NFL every single year, starting with Tariq. Tariq, Brandon Parker, the kid from Atlanta, defensive end, went to the Buffalo.
Daryl Johnson.
Daryl Johnson, the defensive back.
Tony McRae.
Tony played for the Ravens. That's what we were doing every year. We were the standard. We can get back there. We have to. But we can't get back there if people don't support financially the institution and athletics. We just can't compete.
No question about it. We're here with Willie A. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll just say one other thing, and it's critically important. The athletics is the front door to the university. There is an absolute clear tie to us becoming the largest HBCU in the land with how we were performing in athletics. Tariq being on that national stage had a lot of kids saying, that's where I want to go. Winning all of those MEAC championships. At one time, we were winning half of the MEA championships across all sports every year for about 3-4 years in a row. That makes a difference. No one walks out and brags about being associated with a loser. We're not losers. And so we deserve to be in the winning circle. We can only get there if all Aggies are all in. And the beauty of campaign, it's not about, I need to give as much as Willie Deese or as Jeff Foster. It's about everybody doing the best that they can do. And there's a place in this campaign for everybody. And if everybody gets in, I guarantee you we will win. Think about this. If we have 5,000 people give at least $100 a year, I'm going to do this math real quick because I'm getting old. I don't want to say anything and have somebody check my math and say he was wrong. If we have 5,000 people give $100 a year, that's $500,000, $500,000. That makes a big difference to North Carolina A&T. I know we've got 5,000 people who can give at least $100.
Absolutely, and many of them
And it's
are.
not going to break the bank.
Many of them are listening to us right now. I want to give a shout out to Jeter, who reminds us that we have several women's basketball players who are playing internationally. So no question about that. April McCray, thinking about Jordan Dorsey, Malia Percone, are just a few of those names
Absolutely.
that come to mind. And shout out to Terrell Robinson, who has done an outstanding job with the women's program. Thank you for Lonnie Shaw listening to us here. And Greg Davis, who mentioned the foster gift, and how proud of you were you to see that come across?
Brian, we say sometimes something makes your day. That one made my year. I mean, what they're doing is just unbelievable. That is going to make a profound difference to A&T returning to dominance in Black college football. It is going to fund. I want everybody to get this. Coach Gibbs says, in the short term, the most important thing for him to rebuild the football program is to have more scholarships. This is going to provide 11 more scholarships per year for the next 5 years.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. No question about that. The question went out over the chat. Will the name of the Bryan Fitness and Wellness Center change now because of that donation?
It will now be the Foster Family Fitness Center.
Wow. They certainly deserve a hand clap, a loud hand clap for that donation. That is awesome. That is truly awesome. And shout out to Coach Gibbs. He is in the process of really resurrecting the A&T program to where it was in those mid 2010 seasons where A&T was just dominant. And like he always says, we dominated on that stage, the HBCU stage, Celebration Bowl. Now it's time for us to dominate on the national stage, and certainly that gift will certainly start to get us there. I wanted to ask you, that 1976 basketball team was honored, 50-year anniversary. Is that type of feel going away? I know seeing Birdman there and Sinclair and some of those guys back together, that bond will never dissipate because they have something that has lasted 50 years. But with the one and done and guys transferring, is that love of A&T, that love of Aggie, where guys were together 2 or 3 years as teammates, are we seeing the end of that because of, the pay for play?
Brian, my heart says no, but my mind says it may be slipping away. But here's why I have some hope. I believe what is still here and what I think is our secret sauce is being A&T. At the end of the day, unless you're going to go and play for a Power Four and you're going to get meaningful time, I don't know that even if you get paid well, going to sit on someone's bench is going to be in your best interest. And the downside that nobody talks about, but it's very real, 45% of the kids, the young student athletes who get in the portal never finish their eligibility to play college athletics. We're not even talking about whether or not they graduate. They never finish their eligibility to play college athletics. What's our graduation rate? We have to have these, just like we're having the conversations with the alums about they need to give. We got to be having the conversations with the parents, with the student athletes, and the grandparents, that if you come to A&T, you're going to play sports, you're going to be on television, and you're going to graduate. Here's the other downside nobody talks about, Brian. If these young folks aren't getting some really good financial counseling,
That's right.
not only are they not going to complete their eligibility, they're going to have a tax bill in 3 to 4 years that they can't pay. Because if you're getting a substantial amount of money, my experience says the state of North Carolina and the U.S. Treasury wants combined anywhere from 30 to 42% of that. And if someone's not helping them manage that, if they're not accustomed to managing something of that size and magnitude, it's not going to end well. And we need to be having those conversations in a way, not to scare them, but to help guide them such that they don't make life-changing mistakes.
No question about that. We're here with Willie A. Dees. He is a retired former executive vice president and certainly someone who has become a philanthropist for North Carolina A&T State University and North Carolina A&T athletics. And we thank him for taking out this time with us just to kind of educate us on the different outlook of college athletics and what all of that means. You know, we talk about educating our fan base. How much do we need to educate our administration on the changing times of athletics? And do you think that education has started and there's a reception to it? Is it receptive? Are they receiving it?
A great question, Brian. The education has started. I would say we're late to understanding and putting things in place to do it, but the understanding is there and the support is there. But this thing changed really pretty quickly. And once it changed, it just took off. And I think a lot of institutions, even the large ones, and the ones in the Power Four, initially were caught a bit flat-footed in terms of understanding how pervasive this was going to end up being. So I don't think while we may have been late getting to the party, I don't think we have to be in a disadvantaged position if we can get everyone to start to support and everyone continue to learn, because whatever it is today, to the point you made earlier in this conversation, 2 years from now, it's going to be different. I don't expect it's going to be any easier, but it'll be different. And then 4 years from now, it'll probably be different again.
You know, I watched
we have to keep educating.
Yeah. I watched some of your business videos, and you are adamant about putting things in place not only for today, but in 15 years, 20 years down the road, putting the right people in place and the right mechanisms in place in order to be successful 15 years, 20 years down the road. Where do you see this after 5 years? You know, what type of leadership do you see in place? Have you looked beyond just that 5 years as we talk about North Carolina A&T athletics and where we want to be in a financial situation?
Another really good question, Brian. The whole notion of doing this usually campaigns of 5 years. But what we set out to do was at the end of 5 years, we have that run rate that we talked about. We've educated, starting from the time students walk in the door as freshmen, around the notion of giving back. We've garnered enough fan support that the profile of our giving looks significantly different than it does today. Let me give you one statistic that will underpin why this is so important. 70 to 75% of the dollars that we collect today to support athletics come from people who are 70 years old or older.
Wow.
Let that sink in.
Wow, I did not know that. Wow.
That is not sustainable. That is a going out of business strategy. So the other thing that we said, we had to get the donor base significantly younger going forward. I'm 70 years old. And another dismal statistic, the life expectancy for Black men, 70.7 years. So I'm in overtime. And I'm going to try to play for 2 or 3 overtimes here. But I make that point because, and what drove me a year ago to say that we must do this was that primary statistic, because that truly is not sustainable. And so now, good thing, Jeff is not, Foster is not 70 years old. And others who stepped up in the last year and made really good donations to this effort are not 70 years old. We just have to keep driving that number down. I'm going to give you a couple of stats. By the end of this year, we will have over 1,000 new donors to athletics that are Aggies.
Outstanding.
So far, we've had, out of that number, we've had something like 650 that are first-time donors to athletics. We've had another 200 plus that are first-time donors to the university, period. And we've had 340 who are 45 or younger. So we're starting to hit those other targets. And you asked the question about 10, 15 years out. We designed what we were doing with that in mind.
No question about it. What is, if people, you want to add to that number, it's just great that, we have thousands of Aggies now that are giving. But of course, we want to add to that number 75,000 alumni. What is the way that easiest way they can join in on this campaign?
It would be if you go online to the A&T website and you click on Give or Athletics, it'll take you directly to how to give to All Aggies All In. And it's painless. It doesn't take as long as it does to draw blood and doesn't hurt.
No question about it. I am enjoying myself. This is very educational for me. Thank you for everybody for listening. George Suggs, thank you for listening. He said he's class of 72. So he's in overtime as well. No question about it. Anthony Newkirk, thank you for joining us. Says A&T needs a 5 to 10 year strategic plan. And no question that Mr. Dees and a lot of his folks that have joined in on this are certainly, we have that in mind. Thank you for Corey Gaddy also listening to us here. This great conversation talking about recruiting high school athletes, with so many of the Power Fours going the older route, 24, 25 years old, there might be some high school kids that become available who might normally not be available to us. I wanted to give you a chance to just maybe thank anybody that you wanted to thank for helping you with this campaign, getting it kick-started. I know it gets a little weird when you start throwing out names because you don't want to forget anybody, but what were some of the key factors, the key people that kind of helped this get going?
In some ways, this has been a grassroots campaign. And what we tried to do was recruit people who we knew had a love for A&T and a zest for going to work. And you'll find that we've got some athletes, student athletes on the committee. We've got folks ranging from the early 20s up to the mid to late 70s on the committee. I'm going to refrain from mentioning names because I know I'll leave somebody out and I don't want anybody getting mad at me. But I can tell you, Brian, it's been a broad cross section, and these folks have gone out and they spread the word. They've engaged their circle of friends and family. And that is really how you start getting hundreds and then hopefully thousands of people involved and engaged in this campaign. And that's what we're doing. And we're saying no gift is too large or too small, because it really and truly is. Let me just say this to folks. This isn't all that complicated. We don't have that many folks who can walk up and write you a check for $1 million. We have some. We don't have many. But if we have a lot of people doing the best that they can do at every level, we'll win. We'll win on the field. We'll win in raising money. The law of average says you're going to win because you're the largest. Now, A&T has the second highest starting salaries on average of every school in the UNC system. We can do minimally $100 a year. We get 5,000 people doing that. That's a base of $500,000. You then get the larger gifts like the Fosters and other people who are making large gifts. We need all of them, from the top to the bottom and bottom to the top. We get that from a athletics fundraising perspective. On the HBCU front, we're unmatched.
No question.
We just are. Another stat, and I don't say this being negative toward Grambling in any way, but Grambling has a rich athletics tradition, particularly in football. Grambling has 40,000 alums, yet they outraise us in athletics fundraising. That makes no sense. Makes sense for Grambling. Doesn't make sense for us.
No question.
And so that is the comparison that I think about. And when I think about that, I said, no, that shouldn't be. Now, I doubt if that'll be the case this year. With what we're raising this year, and assuming we keep building on that year on year, which is the plan, we'll be in good shape by the time 2030. And we will have started the education process with students coming in as freshmen, such that they're giving. That is the way they do it at private HBCUs that don't have public funding. And just so everybody knows, public funding, you cannot use it to support athletics. It has to come from ticket sales and private donations, whether they be local businesses, corporations, foundations, or individuals. So we're going to only be as good as we are at fundraising.
No question about it. Like Mr. D said, go to the A&T website, click on Give, go to the athletics websites, click on donations, and you can give the Aggies All In. It is kicked off. It is great. I remember the first meeting we had, we were a little nervous after the homecoming, but now it is really taking off like a rocket, and the numbers are really looking good. And I know you're a basketball guy. I've kept you long enough. I'm fascinated by the conversation we're having. But for you, and I'm going to get you in trouble here a little bit, what is it better for you? Is it 70s basketball or is it 80s basketball with Joe Binion and Don Corbett and the guys? What was the sweet spot for you in A&T men's basketball?
Wow. That's a tough one, Brian, because I think every era had something to point to about it that was great. In the 70s, it was not uncommon for standout basketball players at HBCUs to end up in the pros.
Okay.
When we won that championship in the 70s, who did we beat? Morgan State, with Marvin Webster as the center. And folks who are too young to know who Marvin was unfortunately befell by hepatitis before he went pro. If Marvin had not had hepatitis, we're talking about one of the all-time greats. That was HBCU basketball in the 70s. And we beat Marvin and Morgan for that championship in 76. I think we played them 3 times that year. We won 2 of those games, and we won the one that was most important. Joe Binion, of course, was a scorer, 6'9", and I don't know that we've ever had anyone that played the post that could score like Joe Binion. And then that 87 team that had Jimmy Brown's son on it, Jimmy Brown and Claude
Williams.
What's it called? Williams, and that whole crew. And they gave Syracuse all they could handle.
In Chapel Hill.
Beat us by 5 points. And I know Syracuse was over there sweating bullets. We could have won that game. So, each era had its moments and things that you can point to and say that was the best. What I do know, and then of course we didn't talk about our CIAA days, and that's when you had Al Attles, and he of course went on to fame with Golden State Warriors. So each era has had great moments. Now is the time, though, we have to create new great moments. And we were close this year. I don't think people realize, if you look at our record this year, you'd say, oh, mediocre. Now, if we had been full strength, I can tell you no one wanted to play us if we had been full strength, because they knew on any night we could beat them. And I just hope we can get all the kids back.
Certainly, Lewis Walker is the elephant in the room, so to speak, in terms of, the records that he broke. He broke one of Joe Binion's record, which is a big deal in North Carolina A&T.
That's a big deal.
Huge deal. And, as you start to, not necessarily specifically him, but, and I think you alluded to this earlier, as you start to talk to young men like that, what is the value of being, as you see it, an Aggie, a longtime Aggie, a North Carolina A&T Aggie, as a part of not just the sports arena, but just the overall culture of the university?
I'm going to come back to that story I shared earlier in this podcast about my own personal story. My dad was a janitor at Davidson College, and I could have gone there for free because he worked there. I wouldn't have gotten that advice there that I got at A&T. I would not have had someone care about me the way the folks in the college business cared about me. And not just me, it was all of us. I think that's still at A&T.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been a part of who we are. And you can't make it up. You can't create it if it's not who you are. And I'm not going to say that these kids can't be cared about at a PWI, but I know it's not the same. And I know that they are going to need to be able to count on something when the ball stops bouncing. And I think you get that at A&T in spades.
Mm.
And those are conversations we have to have. I think you create lifelong friendships at an A&T that you need in life. I think you create networks at A&T that you need in life. One of the things when we were recruiting kids to come into the business college, and they start asking questions about job placement and other things, I say to them, these colleges that are recruiting you, ask them where their graduates go and what they end up doing. And if they're slow to answer or they start looking down at your feet, that's all you need to know. You ask an Aggie that, you're going to get an answer that's meaningful.
That's right.
And I don't know, Brian, because I haven't been faced with the problem or the challenge. But I believe if I were a young student athlete today in today's society, I could look beyond the immediate payment and I'd be an Aggie. Mm. Now, it's easy for me to say because I don't have someone handing me that money. But I grew up on the farm, one of 9 kids. And I know what being dirt poor is like. I still think I would have made the choice I made. Because I had that choice 50 years ago. And I chose A&T. And I didn't get to go there for free.
You had to work at it. Aggie Pride. Love it. Love it. Love it so much. I'm going to let you out of here on this one. Cameron Stevens, thank you for listening in. Had a question about facilities. I hear that a lot, along with the NIL conversation. Of course, we have Corporate Sports Center, Truist Stadium, War Memorial Stadium is baseball, Lady Aggie Softball Complex. Is the next step an improvement on facilities as we start talking about campaigning?
The answer is yes. But I don't have the solution for that yet. And part of the reason I don't have the solution, it is a very expensive solution. Again, you cannot use state funds to enhance, build, or refurbish, renovate athletic facilities. So again, we're going to have to find ways to raise that money. So let us solve this one first, which is how do we recruit and retain players? And then I'm going to get one of these younger Aggies to work on helping figure out how do we get the facilities to where they need to be.
That's right. That's right. Sharing the responsibility. Mr. Dees, it has been a pleasure, sir. You've spent an hour with me, and that is more than generous for you. And I thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have this conversation again as you continue to educate so many Aggies on the need to give to Aggie athletics and the importance of it, and the fact that we don't get public money, tax money for athletics, and so it's important for us to be able to compete with the Monmouths in football and the Charlestons and the Wilmingtons in basketball and all the other folks that we see in all the other sports. Thank you, sir, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Brian, thank you. And can I make one last point? Because I said
Yes,
this
sir.
in LA. If everybody watching, you can see I've got an A&T sweatshirt on. Let's say this sweatshirt costs $50. A&T gets $6 of that. They don't get $50. So when someone says, you know, I'm wearing this Aggie gear and isn't that enough? It's not enough. A&T gets $6 of that. None of that today goes to athletics. That is our reality. That's why we need everybody's help. All in. Get in where you fit in.
And you made a point about homecoming too, about those dollars and what they mean as well.
Absolutely. We've got to raise. We're going to be asking for, particularly on a 100th anniversary, if you're coming to homecoming, you got to leave something. You can't just come and enjoy the festivities and not give. 130,000 people come to town. The only institution I believe in town that doesn't make money is North Carolina A&T from homecoming. We got to change that paradigm.
No question about it. Guys, thanks for listening in. Mr. Dees, thank you for your time. And we'll see you next time on the next Aggie Pridecast. Everybody have a wonderful night. Good night.
Thank you, Brian. Good night, everyone.